Hi, everyone. This is David from CSR Insights. Thank you for joining us and having conversations about good matters that improve people's lives. Our guest for today is Dr. Christopher C. Bernido, President of the Central Visayan Institute Foundation. Sir Chris, welcome to the program.
Thank you. Thank you, David, for the invite.
Sir Chris, you created CVIF-Dynamic Learning Program. Pakikwento naman po sa amin, bakit nyo ginawa yon at ano yung mga problems sa education na ina-address nito?
Well, actually, the CVIF Dynamic Learning Program was created together with my wife who passed away. It was created to solve problems which unfortunately still exist today. And this
Mhm.
would be the lack of qualified teachers, lack of classrooms, lack of textbooks, lack of equipment, which existed. The DLP started in 2002, so that's about 20 years ago. And the same problems persist up to today. So the DLP was designed to address these problems and up to today.
Mhm. Sir Chris, nabanggit ninyo 'no na 20 years na yung nakalipas, nandun pa rin yung problem. Well, actually, 'di ba parang hundreds of years ago, parang ang hindi na nga nagbago yung itsura ng classroom or ng school natin. Ano po ba sa ngayon yung mga puntos na yun? Halimbawa, the books, the qualification of teachers. Ano po yung sinasabi ng study locally and pagkakaalam ko po internationally, meron tayong lack in STEM.
Yes, that's true, David, and it's becoming worse. Like for the lack of qualified teachers. Like for example, well, we know that Canada, Australia, and the US have been lacking teachers. They've been recruiting from the Philippines. But for example, in Germany today, they lack 30,000 teachers, and they project that by 2030, the lack of teachers would reach up to 80,000. And this is compounded by the fact that a lot of Ukrainians also migrated to Germany with their children. And it is a law in Germany that all children from, I think, 6 to 16 years old have to be educated. So this is a very, very grave problem in Europe and in many countries. So the lack of qualified teachers still exists, just like 20, 30 years ago. And also in our country, for example, the lack of classrooms and so on. But the hallmark of the CVIF Dynamic Learning Program is precisely to bypass the lack of qualified teachers, to bypass the lack of textbooks, to bypass the lack of classrooms, and all this stuff. And it has been proven to be effective even during disasters, typhoons, war in Zamboanga, and so on. So the DLP has been shown to be effective even in these situations.
Sir, there's a lot of technological advancements in education. Baka sabihin nila hindi na relevant ang CVIF DLP. Paano ba siya nakaka-survive or affected nga ba siya ng tech advancements?
Well, actually, I think it is the answer to the worries of many people, many teachers, to the advances of technology. For example, let's talk about the most serious thing, Chat GPT, right? It has nayanig ang educational system because of Chat GPT. Paano na lang yung teachers? If you, and I think you know, David, that one of the essential components of the dynamic learning program is that the students, instead of listening to lectures, they will copy the new lessons that they have to learn. They have a learning activity sheet. It's just one page, one concept, and they have to copy this. And the act of copying actually bypasses this problem of Chat GPT, right? One of the worries of teachers today is this cut and paste. They can't do cut and paste if they have to write in their own, the students have to write in their own handwriting. So this actually is a solution to the problems which is brought about by the new technology. This Chat GPT can be cured, there's a remedy for that. Secondly, the fourth industrial revolution, people say that the next generation will have to learn 4 or 5 different jobs in their lifetime, and so they have to learn on their own. And precisely the DLP, having its hallmark independent learning, will prepare the students for this lifelong learning in the fourth industrial revolution. Because in the DLP, when a new topic is being introduced for any subject at any year level, there's no prior lecture, right? It's a new topic. It's a first encounter for the topic for the student, but there's no prior lecture or introductory lecture, because the lecture will be introduced by the learning activity sheet, which they have to copy from the title, learning target, concept notes, illustrations, and then a few questions, one page, one concept. And so if there's no prior lecture, you're actually training the minds of this next generation to learn independently. And in the work world, in the fourth industrial revolution, they have to learn independently many jobs during their lifetime. So it's creating a mindset, a habit of the mind for these children if they take the DLP.
Meron po ba kayong mga observations or studies na hindi lang intellectual capacity ang ini-impact ng DLP, kundi pati values formation, the way they treat other people?
Oh yes. In fact, the DLP is applied in our school and in those schools which adopted the DLP. In all subjects, from values, physical education, languages, STEM, all the subjects, it's across the board. So, kukuha po lahat yun sa DLP, and all subjects, philosophy, whatever, values, physical, they have learning activity sheets. Because even in physical education, there's always a theory part, right? Even if you perform an experiment, there's always a theory part. And the theory part is the one that they will copy in preparation for the practicum. And it has been shown by many studies that copying and writing by hand is superior to just listening to lectures. And, well, you talk about problems. Another problem that is very apparent nowadays, especially in the Philippines, is the lack of classrooms, right? At one point, the DepEd superintendent of Metro Manila, during the pandemic, when they were interested in the DLP because of the pandemic and the lockdown, the superintendent said, even after the pandemic, we would need the DLP for the simple reason, and he said that there's a lack of classroom. Not all children can be accommodated in the classroom, so they will have to be effectively taught using the DLP, using these learning activity sheets. And that superintendent said, I'm an urban planner, and I know that there will be a lack of classrooms in Metro Manila. And just a few months back, Cebu City also had the same problem of the lack of classrooms. And that's why they also, through the help of PLDT Smart Foundation and Smart Communications, they also wanted to learn about the DLP, which would answer the lack of classroom problem. So it addresses many issues, actually. Issues which were present 20 years ago and which is now worse. The problems are becoming worse today because of the changing educational landscape, David.
Sir Chris, isa-isahin ko po sa eskwelahan, ang mga bata, based on my readings about CVIF-DLP, they write as much as possible, they copy everything on a blank sheet of paper, and then they submit it to teachers. Hindi ba nakakapagod yun? From 8 a.m. to 5 p.m., nagsusulat sila?
Well, of course, no pain, no gain. You can ask any Olympic athlete, no? Yung sa traditional, David, hindi napapagod yung mga bata kasi nakaupo lang sila doon. They're invisible to the teacher. They're not actually listening to the teacher. They're thinking about the movie they saw last night, or they're thinking about the food they're going to eat for lunch. They are physically present but mentally absent, and they're not tired. Okay? And when you give them an exam, well, kita naman dun sa national achievement tests, bagsakan yung mga bata. So there has to be a certain amount of sacrifice. If you want to achieve something, there has to be a certain amount of sacrifice. And in the DLP, it would be in the form of writing. And actually, it also partially solves the problem of non-readers. This is also one big problem of the Philippine educational system, where students are just being promoted from one year level to another because no child left behind. So they just promote these school children. So in our school, we have a very liberal admission. We don't have elementary, so students come in grade 7, and there are actually non-readers there, but we accept them okay, at grade 7. But surprisingly, by the time they reach grade 9, that means the time wherein the government gives the NCAE, National Career Assessment Exam, and before it was the NSAT, none of the examinees scored below average. So what happened to the non-readers? Okay, and well, our hypothesis is that what happened to the non-readers is that because of in the DLP they do a lot of writing. What is reading? It actually means that what I write, this symbol, what I write has a meaning. And they do that from one period to another. So suddenly, the non-readers would slowly learn how to read. Secondly, these non-readers or the challenged learners, because the DLP is actually addressed also to the challenged learners. In the DLP, the teacher is not dominant, it's independent learning, but the peer tutoring is very, very strong inside the classroom. Now, if I'm a challenged learner, I'm shy to ask my teacher about the answer to the question, but I may approach my best friend during the activity period and then ask what the answer is, and then I write and so on and so forth. They could actually consult each other while learning is ongoing during the writing of the LAS. And then later on, they will have the quizzes and exams wherein they have to do things independently. So surprisingly, it addresses a lot of problems, the non-readers, the challenged learners, the lack of qualified teachers, lack of textbooks. They don't need textbooks, by the way. I'm sorry, but some group are not happy about it. But they don't need textbooks because they have they're making sort of quote unquote their own textbook through the accumulation day by day, hour by hour of the learning activity sheets, which they have to copy. And there are a lot of studies in Harvard and UCLA, in Princeton, that copying is actually more superior than, for example, typing via the laptop. And there are a lot of scientific studies on the effect of writing. And so in 2002, we have implemented the writing component of the DLP, but it was only about 8-10 years ago that the scientific evidences about the superiority of writing came out. So it sort of validated a component of the DLP.
Sir Chris, on teachers, based on what I read about CVIF-DLP, parang 25% of the time lang nung class pwede silang magturo. Okay lang ba yun na hindi na makapagturo yung teachers?
Well, actually, in the DLP, the role of the teacher is now shifted. In the traditional, they have to lecture in order to impart a new topic. In the DLP, teacher intervention is limited to 20% because the new topic to be learned by the students are being copied. They look at the learning activity sheets, the learning target, the concept digest, the illustration, and the questions. So that's how they learn a new topic. It's not via lecture, but it's through writing. And in fact, we say that an ideal learning activity sheet is an activity where zero teacher intervention is needed. No more teacher intervention. So when 80% of the class have accomplished the LAS or learning activity sheet and they more or less got the answer, then the thing to do is to move to the next activity. The teacher should not lecture anymore because the students will become noisy, that's the wrong strategy. And even in the philosophy of Maria Montessori, which Montessori addresses the very young children, kinder and maybe grade 1, Maria Montessori said, if only I could tie down the hands of my teachers because they keep on intervening while learning is ongoing. And in fact, this limiting teacher intervention to just 0 to 20% of the period has analogies in other areas of endeavor. For example, let me give an example in medicine. Suppose, maybe unfortunately you got admitted for several days in a hospital. If you observe, the doctors do not stay 24/7 in your room, right? The doctors go from one patient to another, checking different patients. And it is the nurses, which we have facilitators in our case in the DLP, who will take your blood pressure, your oxygen, and so on. That's because the patient, the doctor is not needed by the patient while the patient is still healing. So in like analogy, the student is not needed, the teacher is not needed by the student while the student is still learning, and the teacher should not intervene.
Sir Chris, maybe last three questions. In CVIF, your senior high school students are discovering new species of mollusks in Hagna Bay, studying about marine biology. Paano niyo po nagawa yon using CVIF DLP?
Well,
And other milestones, please.
yes. Okay, yeah. We have a marine science laboratory. Our school is located at the edge of Ball Sea. And Ball Sea is known to be the center of biodiversity, as claimed by some foreign marine biologists. So I felt that the school, in one way or another, with the help of the students, should help in at least creating a database of the species specimens that exist in Hagna Bay in Bohol Sea. So we do that up to the point where, well, we collect during intertidal when the seawater is about knee level. We collect specimens, of course, with the permission of the BIFAR, Bureau of Fisheries and Agriculture. We got all the mayor's permit and all that stuff. So we collect the specimens, and then try to extract some tissue and get the DNA barcode of each specimen. At the moment, we're still sending these tissues to the Philippine Genome Center in the University of the Philippines. And so we create a data bank of barcodes of the different specimens which exist in Hagna Bay. And then our students have also presented in posters in scientific conferences some of the results on this.
Sir Chris, what kind of schools, rich or poor, urban or rural, can implement CVIF DLP?
The CVIF implementing schools have been, it's a wide spectrum. Some people say that, well, maybe CVIF DLP is good for the rural because our school is in a rural area, 63 kilometers from the nearest city. But there are two schools like Stella Maris College, which is located in Cubao. And Cubao is a highly dense commercial city, and they have been implementing the DLP for, I don't know, maybe almost 10 years now. And another example would be Davao Christian High School. They have started implementing the DLP since 2005. And Davao is a huge city. It's the, I think, third largest city in the Philippines. So, and they have successfully implemented the DLP. And these schools are located in very dense cities. So it's a wide spectrum. There are from small schools. Okay, there are schools with only one section per year level and located in a remote area. And there are also schools which are big, Davao Christian High School and Stella Maris College, located in a city. So it is applicable regardless of the setting or the economic income of the school.
Sir, for those who'd like to implement CVIF DLP, sino po ang pwede nilang makontak?
I think the best way for them to contact is Smart Communications, because Smart created the so-called DLP ambassadors. And these DLP ambassadors are faculty members of DLP implementing schools. So if you contact Smart Communications, they will help you. They will even go to your schools, train your teachers, send these DLP ambassadors to train you 1 day or 2 days, and also teach you about the learning activity sheets. By the way, all our learning activity sheets are available online. You can download it for free. These are LAS or learning activity sheets from grade 7 to 12 for all subjects. So our website is CVIF Bohol, small letters, cvifbohol.com. And then you can click the e-learning tab, and then you can download all the activities if you're interested.
Sir Chris, your quick advice to education leaders. Paano ba patatakbuhin ang ating education system?
Well, education leaders from school level to, well, you know my answer, David. But at the school level, if a school wants to implement a DLP, he or she has to understand the philosophy, understand deeply the DLP. Why? Because the teachers will complain, the students will complain, and maybe the parents will complain, but all these complaints will die down simply because of performance indicators. And then it will go away. And once the school has adopted the DLP, it's very hard for the school to go back to the traditional. If you're coming from traditional, it's difficult to go to DLP, but it's also, once you're in DLP, it's also difficult to go back. But the administrator, especially in the beginning, has to understand the philosophy.
Sir Chris Bernido from CVIF-DLP, maraming salamat po.
Okay, maraming salamat, David, for the invite.